Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast for all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time. I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to tune in. Thank you for allowing us to come into your viewing environment. We are here with you every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time to address whatever topics you might like to discuss and whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. We are here broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio where you can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships, whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind. God is concerned about that which concerns you, and that is the reason that we are here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji Water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock? The water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Fiji Water at FijiWater.com. We're having a little technical difficulty, so just bear with me this morning as we prepare to discuss all of the topics that are important to you and all the issues of life that you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. So I'm going to remind all of our listeners and viewers, we are Facebook Live, we are YouTube Live, we are RadioFreeNetwork.com Live. Go to RadioFreeNetwork.com, click on radio, the drop box will appear, click on the New Life link. Every broadcast will be available to you 365 days a year, and you can tune in on YouTube at Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which all of the broadcasts are archived in perpetuity. And we want you to stay connected with us. We want you to stay connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year by tuning into our internet radio station, WKAP Faith Empowerment Radio. You can find us at WKAP.com, where we play music that will encourage you, empower you, and inspire you to become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become. And I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you are overwhelmed by your professional responsibilities, and it has gotten to the point that you no longer know if you can keep up. And you want to know, is there something you can do to reduce the stress of being overwhelmed and to really get back on point? So this is an excellent question, because so often, and I'm going to take us through this scenario very slowly, because this is really an important topic for all of us, because we all know stress is a killer. We need to reduce and eliminate stress in our lives. And one of the issues that we often have is that we feel the feeling of being overwhelmed. And one of the things that we have to do, first of all, is to manage our responsibilities. And what that means is delegate what can be delegated and address what you find necessary to address. Don't try to control everything. And the reason is because you can't control everything. That's the reality. The professional environment requires us to deal with so many different people in so many different ways. You cannot control what other people do. And so therefore, you have to take into consideration the things that you're responsible for are the things that you are directly responsible for handling. The things that other people are doing cannot become part of your stressor. And what I mean by that is this. So interestingly enough, I'm going to use an analogy that I was having a discussion earlier today, and I receive a lot of emails and text communication every day. When I say a lot, more than the average person. Certainly. Cannot speak for everyone, but I can certainly say more than the average person. And probably right up there with those who are also receiving an enormous amount of emails and texts every day. The reality is that I tell everyone, I respond to emails that require a response. If it's just someone sharing information with me, I don't respond to it. I get a lot of those every day. I get people sharing information with me about a lot of different things regarding investments, regarding health and wellness, regarding education. I get a lot of emails that don't require a response, but they're for information purposes. And so I tell all of those people, I may not respond to the emails that are sent just for information purposes. If it's something I want to discuss, I will respond to it. But if not, then I'll just read it, be informed, keep up my level of awareness, and keep moving. Because I have all these other emails and communications to respond to every single day. So what I say is this. If someone sends me an email that requires a response, I will respond to that email within 24 hours. At some point in time, I'm going to respond to that email within the next 24 hours. I used to say that consistently, but then people that I know personally, who know me and know that I have a big schedule, I tell them, listen, I'll get back to you, certainly within the next couple of days. Even if I just shoot you a text and say, got your email, I'll respond later. But within the next couple of days. But there are people who, like you, feel overwhelmed that may not respond to you within the same week. To me, that's not something I can understand just because I know how I manage my time. So I expect others to manage their time also. So certainly, pardon me, I should hear from you within a few days if I send you an email, particularly an email that requires a response. But you may not get that. So I made a comment about it today because the email came in a week later. I had already addressed it with someone else and it's been resolved. And I received an email instructing me on how to communicate with the party I already have communicated with to resolve the email. Well, it's a week later. So I'll share with you, I said to my wife, I can't believe that it took a week for someone to respond to me with an email and instructing me to communicate with the parties I've already communicated with to resolve the issue that had to be resolved, but now it's already been resolved and now they're responding a week later. And my wife made me essentially get refocused by saying, it happens. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she said. She said, listen, you can't spend any time on that because it happens with some people. So I moved on because there's so much more to be done. You can't, and the reason I'm sharing this with you is because you can't spend any more time on something that you don't have any control over. I could send an email to the person and chastise them for not responding. It's only going to take up more time to do that, and it's only going to damage their spirit if they're in a place where they were overwhelmed and couldn't do it, or they had something going on in their health. I don't know all of that. And you don't know all of that either. So some of the things that you're concerned about or overwhelmed about are external. Don't spend any more time on it. That's one of the ways you're going to reduce your stress. Focus on the things that you can control. And I've got to tell you, sometimes, spouses will make a comment to you, and I didn't say anything to my wife about, okay, you got me refocused. All I said was, I get it. But in my mind, I'm saying she's right. There could have been other issues going on. So I'm not going to give it any more energy. Although this isn't the first time they've done this, I'm still not going to give it any more energy. But it just allowed me to refocus. So you focus on the responsibilities that you have. I moved on to, other business issues that needed to be addressed, and got some additional work done before time to get on the broadcast. Got what needed to be done, what was on my calendar for the first half of, the first part of the day, first segment of the day before the broadcast begins. And now I'll do the broadcast, which is my responsibility. And when the broadcast is over, post-production, and then I'll move on to the other responsibilities of the day. And I'm saying all of that to say to you, you've got to be on point with what your responsibilities are. Because those are the only things you have control over. Everything else is going to be external and moving parts that you don't have any control over. And then you can refocus on the things that you can control, or that God has assigned you to control, so that you can relieve some of your stress. Now, so you ask this question. You say it's gotten to the point where you don't know if you can keep up. Is there something you can do? We go back to the basics. I used an analogy in the Sunday sermon about back to the basics. We have a private tutoring academy here in our area that is named Back to Basics. And I often think about that, back to basics. You got to get back to the basics. And so the basics for keeping up and not being overwhelmed. And I tell everyone this. A 10-hour workday for me consists of this: 2 hours of administration, 2 hours of development, 2 hours of management, 2 hours of marketing, advertising, branding, and 2 hours of operations. There may be some overlaps throughout the course of the day. That's 5 segments of business, 2 hours a day. That's a 10-hour workday. Some of us are going to work more than that, because in addition to that, I still have 3 hours of studying that I do every day. Some of you may have other duties and responsibilities that might take you to a 12-hour day. But the reality is that all of us need to put in a 10-hour day. That's going to help us to keep from getting overwhelmed. And what I mean by that is, if we outline those segments and focus on giving each of those segments 2 hours of our committed time every day, we're going to make progress. We're not going to feel as overwhelmed. And let me say this. I don't want anyone to misunderstand this. We all have moments when we feel we're overwhelmed. When you feel overwhelmed, it should only be because the responsibilities that you have internally to perform have become so large that you have a period of time where you feel overwhelmed. But as you chisel away at them, outlining the segments that I just mentioned, you will find that eventually you'll chisel away at them and you will get things back into the normal process of things. Being overwhelmed doesn't last forever. And for you, you've gotten to the point where for a very long time now, you've been feeling overwhelmed. You don't know if you can keep up. And now it's causing you stress because you're in overload. But part of it is because you're dealing with all of the external stuff. Now, sometimes it can be internal things when you have, other people inside your company that are causing you problems. But that's not your issue. Your issue is external. You're trying to control what other people are doing outside of your normal business. Now we have a lot of contractors, so I'm gonna use this in our that we use. We outsource a lot in our church and our ministries and our community development. A lot of things are outsourced, so there's a lot of external components. And one of the things that I've learned is I can't control what they're doing. I can only try to keep up the best I can and focus on what I'm doing, provide whatever information I need to provide, consume whatever information I need to consume, and eventually it'll all come together. That's just the reality. But I had to learn that because over time, because what I found is that I was trying to control what they were doing also by, holding them accountable for what they do. But even that, unless they're inside your company and you're not in their offices, you don't have any control over that either. You can only keep giving information, keep sharing, keep, trying to work together to maximize the progress. That's all you can do. If you can come to that place, you will find that you will reduce your stresses, you will eliminate some stresses, and you can get things back into a normal course of order. Because that's what we all need, a normal course of order. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill at T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you have been thinking about the past and how things could have been different had you not made some of the decisions that you've made. So, all right, let's be clear on this. We all, at some point, there's nothing wrong with you. We all, at some point, think about things we could have done differently over the course of our lifetime. We all think about that. We all think about decisions that we made in the past. But here's what I'm going to say about this. First of all, I can sum this up very quickly by saying just make better decisions moving forward. But you can't make better decisions moving forward if you don't make change. And so I'm going to break this down because it's important for all of our listeners and viewers to know this. The decisions we all made in the past, we made them based on life circumstances. We made them based on driving forces, meaning what is it that was driving you, and had it become an obsession more than just inspiration? And the reason is because for those of us who lived in the world at one time and haven't been holy all our lives, we had different driving forces. In some cases, for some of us, it became an obsession. And we made decisions that weren't fruitful because we had no relationship with the Lord. So we couldn't bear any fruit. We couldn't bear good fruit. We might have satisfied our own desires at the time, but we didn't bear fruit. But then we got to a place in our lives, hopefully, where we entered into a new relationship with the Lord. And then those decisions that we once made are not the decisions we would make now. So we continue moving forward. And the way that we continue moving forward is that we make better decisions as we go forward, which is one of the reasons I always remind people that your rear view mirror and your side view mirrors in your cars are smaller than your windshield. And there's a reason for that. You don't need to see as much about what's behind you as you do about what's in front of you, about what your future holds. And I'm going to use this analogy and expound on this. The reason you have a rear view mirror is because it's the center of what's behind you. But the center of what's behind you is very small. It's a oblong shape that you can look up into to make sure that what's behind you doesn't run into you. In other words, as a pastor, I use the analogy that your sin doesn't sneak up on you. So we make certain that what's behind us doesn't run into the back of us. The side view mirrors are designed for you to be able to see. I know we think just to the side of us, but it also allows us to expand our peripheral vision so that we're not getting into an occupied space. We're not getting into an occupied lane. In other words, we're not trying to do what someone else is doing to keep up with them. I'm using that analogy. I want you to stay with me. And that we're not going to cause an accident by turning into the wrong lane. But those two are an oblong shape that only gives you the vision to see to your left and your right. But your windshield, as much as it's designed to keep the wind from coming into the front and birds flying into your car, and I'm being funny. My daughter says I'm not really funny. People only laugh because I'm the pastor, but the truth is, the windshield, we think it's just designed for debris, wind, and the truth of the matter is it allows you to see where you're going. And when you see where you're going, you make better decisions on how to get there. You make decisions based on the way that you know to go. So we use the analogy God's way. You know it's God's will for you to get there because the scripture tells us God has a plan for our lives and it's of good and not of evil. So the windshield is there for you to look towards your future. Where am I going? And now, because time has gone by since the past and technology has changed, we have in our automobiles navigation systems now. We have Waze on our phones. We have Google Maps on our phones. We have a navigation system to take us from one place, one address to another address. But here's what's really good to know, is that God is our true navigation system that will take us exactly where he wants us to go. And it's not as important about us making better decisions than it is about following the instructions that God is giving us. And whether we know it or not, God speaks to us, whether it is in a small, still voice or in some small occurrence throughout the day, or whether it's audible, or whatever it is in your life that God chooses to do. He's always giving us his will. He's done that through his word, and we should stay in his word so that we know his will and so that he will continue to reveal to us. That's our connection with God. Yes, of course, prayer is important. It's necessary. Meditation is important. It's necessary. The word of God is also necessary. It's a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path, but it's also our connection to the source of light. So simply, yes, just make better decisions moving forward. Don't focus on the decisions that you've made in the past. Now, there are some moments that we'll be reminded of the past. But you know what's good about the memory of the past? Not the focus of the past, but the memory of the past, is that it will remind us not to do the things that we did before we came into a new relationship with the Lord. I can't even just say we were saved, because many of us got saved at an early age, but we didn't get delivered from the world until we got older and became wiser in the Word of God. So, don't focus on what life would be like if you had not made some of the decisions that you made. Focus on what life is going to be like by making the decisions you're going to make, the much better decisions, because you're in a much better place now. Are we all still working on a relationship with the Lord? Absolutely. But you're wiser now because you at least have a relationship with the Lord. Because those of us who at one point in our lives were only saved with no relationship, we didn't have a clue. We really didn't. We were just doing what the world taught us to do. And we did it because of our own reasons. Whatever our reasons were. Whatever our driving force was, whatever our obsession truly was. But now we have a better understanding. And when you know better, you do better. When you have a better understanding, you make better decisions. Focus on what's before you and not what's behind you. We don't even, I find it interesting that a lot of people are just living in the present. Pardon me, you don't have to focus on your present because you're living in your present. What you're focusing on is building for the future. Building a better quality of life and maximizing the fullness of God in our lives. I want a better life for my grandchildren and my unborn grandchildren and for my unborn great-grandchildren. I want a better life for them. And what I mean by that is a better quality of life. The scripture says a good man will leave an inheritance for his children's children. I don't want to just leave a tangible inheritance, although I am. We work towards that every day. But I want to leave a spiritual inheritance for them. An understanding that they can see that the generation before them has laid a path for them to follow, a guide for them to follow, to spiritual health and wellness, so that they can be in a better place both personally, professionally, and spiritually. That's what I pray for every day. That's what I work for every day. That the generation coming behind us will be better than our generation, because they won't have to endure the things we've had to endure due to sin, the self-inflicted nonsense that we lived within when we were living in the world. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers, but I have to say this because this is actually another very good communication. You are considering going into business and you say you're tired of working for someone else and you want to benefit from your own hard work. I really want to spend more time on this. I'm going to address this in detail tomorrow, but don't make any moves because you're going into business for the wrong reason. You've got to change your motive for going into business and go into business for the right reason, but you're not ready right now, so don't make any decisions. I'm not a dream killer or a dream stealer. I just want to make sure that you do everything for the right reasons so that you can experience the fullness of God, that you can prosper and have good success. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast 3D has been brought to you by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery. And you'll save money at FijiWater.com. May God bless you today. May God keep his face turned towards you. May God give you peace that surpasses all understanding. Have a great day today. I look forward to being in your viewing environment tomorrow. Remember, we are Facebook Live. We are YouTube Live.